Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Ethereum, a non-emergency video. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. I just want to do a brief video. We already did one on Bitcoin, and it's more or less the same thing. But the general idea is that Ethereum has been in a long-term uptrend. And while these short-term moves to the downside can be somewhat problematic for some people that are overexposed to the market, hopefully the majority of people are managing their portfolios accordingly. And look, we've more or less been in this uptrend channel. We actually broke to the upside once upon a time. We've now gone back down into it. And I would argue that even if we were to drop a few more $100, we could still be looking at a macro uptrend on the Ethereum valuation. To give you an idea of phases that happened in the past, like the one we're seeing today, again, there was a phase over here in 2016 where we basically just went sideways for a long period of time. And we eventually did break out, but it's not like it happened immediately, okay? And I mean, that could mean that we could still have several more months before a sustained breakout to the upside. I mean, with that said, I don't necessarily think we're going to go all the way back down to $1,700, which is what this pattern would suggest. But what it does show is that sometimes these consolidation phases do take a long time. And I would even argue this most recent move to the upside is basically just sort of like vertical accumulation, if you want to call it that, where people are accumulating Ethereum. They're thinking it's ultimately going to trend a lot higher, but then okay, we are getting some people that are taking profits at these higher levels. We've seen some of that before, right? We've seen people take profits over here. We saw people take profits over here. Ultimately, we had a little bit more consolidation to do, and then we were off to the races. I look at this and say, why can't it be something similar? Even the secondary move over here, if you shift it over, you can see some similarities. Now, technically speaking, this phase over here, we then shot up to the upside, and this one we're actually coming back down a little bit. But look, at the end of the day, these cycles are not going to do the exact same thing they did in the past. I think a lot of people just they go back and look at what happened in the past, and then they say, all right, it's going to happen exactly that way again. That's just simply not true. I think the market is actually a little bit more complicated than that. I think we should look at general trends in the market and shifts in momentum, but to assume it has to repeat exactly something that it did in the past is a little bit too optimistic in my opinion. Some of the other things we can look at are things like the bull market support band and recognize that despite this pullback, we're still relatively far removed from it. In fact, we held the bull market support band as support in September at around $2,800, $2,700. Now the 20-week SMA is at $3,386 and the 21-week EMA is at around $3,500. So we could drop a lot further and still hopefully hold the support of the bull market support band. Okay, so I think a lot of people are worried and whatnot because of this most recent move. I do think a lot of people have been spoiled by the last 6 weeks and not really used to some downside as well, right? It doesn't only go up. But I would argue that the whole idea that people have to see a 20K ETH by the end of the year because it's emulating Bitcoin or something from 4 years ago, I think it's a little bit too optimistic. Basically because you also have to assume the market capitalization is a lot higher now than it was back then. For Ethereum to go up 5x, today, at the market caps we're at today, are actually a lot larger than the market cap of Bitcoin all the way back then, right? I mean, Ethereum's market cap today is what, like 500 billion? For it to go to, a 4x from here would take it to 2 trillion. Back in 2018, 2017, the entire asset class only reached like 800 billion. So I think it might be a little bit too optimistic to think we're just going to rinse and repeat exactly what Bitcoin did going into the end of the year. I think it's more likely that we should not constrain ourselves to the next 6 weeks, but also look past it and say, look, the cycle could easily extend beyond 2021. So the idea that we have to fit a parabolic rally into the next 6 weeks just so things fit a certain narrative is a little bit too far-fetched, in my opinion, right? I think people need to be a little bit more pragmatic. And honestly, these predictions sort of set people up to be disappointed because they forget that things are technically in an uptrend and that we're moving higher. They don't necessarily care that we're at $4,100 today, which is a lot further up than where we were a couple months ago back in September. They don't care about that. All they hear is that someone told them it was supposed to be at $5,000 by the end of the week. It's not there, and now they're upset, right? So I think it's better ultimately to steer somewhat clear of these short-term price predictions and to just say, look, Ethereum, technically right now we are in an uptrend. Also, technically speaking, you know, the charts show that we do not have to have a market cycle top in the next 6 weeks, you know, with a multiple on the current price of 4 or 5x, just because we've seen some similar types of price movements in the past, right? So that's generally the argument. You could also draw this a different way if you wanted to be even more conservative and say, look, while it's been nice the last few weeks, that Ethereum has been generally trending higher, we could also just say we're still sort of getting some resistance here, and perhaps down here is our macro support. I don't think that Ethereum is going to go back down to those levels again, right? But you know, testing these levels in here certainly seems somewhat healthy to me. You know, if we go look at some of the daily time frames or some other moving averages that might be worth watching, for instance, there's the 50-day and the 100-day. We already held the 100-day and the 20-week as support over here. Now we're actually flirting with that 50-day moving average, which is just over $4,000. If we go below that, perhaps the next area to watch will be around 36 or 3,700, and then below that you have the bull market support band. And hopefully we hold the line there, because then that would be a nice area to sort of build off of and then continue higher if it actually goes through those milestones, which there's even no guarantee that it will. I mean, we've seen relative bounces off the 50-day moving average in the past, so that might be a key area to watch. All right. So technically speaking, I look at this chart and say, look, technically Ethereum is still in a very much macro uptrend, and I think it's somewhat silly to get concerned with some of these short-term price movements. You could argue that we could drop all the way down to $3,700 and still technically be in this macro uptrend that we've looked at in the past. All right. So no, I don't think this is an emergency or anything like that. I think it's just more or less the same stuff. You guys know the drill. Ethereum's not going to always go up. ETH is not just going to trend higher without any consequential pullbacks. That's fairly standard stuff. If anything, it does allow you to buy the dip if you've been wanting to establish a position. And you know, we'll see what happens next week. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe. Check out the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. But if you want the Black Friday sale, there's a link in the description below. Make sure you click on that, and as long as you do not cancel, you can lock in the lower rate. You'll get access to weekly reports and videos, the Telegram alerts channel, the Telegram chat room, the risk dashboard, and more. Make sure you guys check it out. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.